President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu held a joint press conference at Mar-a-Lago on Monday, delivering remarks that touched on virtually every major flashpoint in the Middle East and beyond. The two leaders appeared side by side at Trump's Florida estate, projecting an image of unity and close coordination between Washington and Jerusalem. But the substance of their remarks revealed the aggressive posture both leaders are taking toward Iran, Gaza, and the broader region. The press conference came as Netanyahu made his fifth visit to the United States in just 10 months. More access than any other world leader has had to Trump since he returned to the White House. The frequency of these meetings underscores both the closeness of the relationship and the number of unresolved issues that continue to require high-level attention. For critics, the press conference was a display of the close alignment between the two leaders on policies that have drawn international condemnation, from the ongoing conflict in Gaza to the threats of military action against Iran. The setting itself was significant. Mar-a-Lago has become Trump's preferred venue for high-stakes diplomacy, a place where foreign leaders come to pay tribute to the American president in his own domain. For Netanyahu, making the pilgrimage to Florida sends a message to domestic audiences in Israel. He has unparalleled access to the most powerful leader in the world. No other Israeli politician can claim such a close relationship with the American president, and Netanyahu intends to make that advantage count as he prepares for what may be the most consequential election of his career. Trump issued a stark warning to Iran during the press conference, threatening military action if Tehran attempts to rebuild its capabilities. "Now I hear that Iran is trying to build up again," Trump said, "and if they are, we're going to have to knock them down. We'll knock them down. We'll knock the hell out of them." The language was blunt and aggressive, characteristic of Trump's approach to Iran throughout his presidency. But it also reflects the ongoing tensions between Washington, Jerusalem, and Tehran, which have escalated dramatically over the past year. Trump referenced the previous U.S.-Israeli military campaign against Iran, suggesting that Tehran should have made a deal before those strikes occurred. "I heard Iran wants to make a deal," Trump said. "They want to make a deal. That's much smarter. They could have made a deal the last time before we went through a big attack on them. They decided not to make a deal. They wish they made that deal." The warning was clear. Iran can either negotiate on American and Israeli terms or face military consequences. When pressed by reporters on whether he would support an Israeli attack on Iran, Trump gave an unequivocal answer. Asked if he would back Israeli strikes if Iran continues with its ballistic missiles and nuclear weapons program, Trump responded, "If they will continue with the missiles, yes. The nuclear, fast. One will be yes, absolutely. The other will do it immediately." The statement represents a significant commitment, essentially giving Israel a green light to strike Iran's nuclear facilities with American support. For Iran and its allies, this is precisely the kind of blank check that makes the prospect of war in the region more likely. Critics argue that such unconditional support for Israeli military action removes any incentive for restraint and makes a broader regional conflict more probable. The implications of such a commitment are profound. For decades, American presidents have sought to restrain Israeli military action against Iran, fearing that a regional war could spiral out of control and draw in the United States. Trump's statement effectively removes that restraint. By promising to support Israeli strikes immediately, Trump is signaling that Israel has a free hand to act and that Washington will back whatever Jerusalem decides to do. For Iran, this represents a fundamental shift in the strategic calculus. Tehran must now assume that any Israeli attack will have full American support, making the prospect of retaliation more complicated and the costs of miscalculation higher. Trump offered effusive praise for Netanyahu, going so far as to suggest that Israel's very existence depends on the Israeli prime minister. "He's a wartime prime minister. He's done a phenomenal job," Trump said. "He's taken Israel through a very dangerous period of trauma." Then Trump made a striking claim: "Israel with other people might not exist right now if you want to know the truth." That's a pretty big statement, but it's true. The statement elevates Netanyahu to near mythic status, the indispensable leader without whom Israel itself would have fallen. For Netanyahu, who faces corruption charges at home and criticism over the October 7th security failures, such praise from the American president is politically invaluable. Trump continued, "I feel that if you had the wrong prime minister, Israel right now would not exist because they were met with a force the likes of which very few countries could have handled." The rhetoric serves both leaders' interests. It reinforces Netanyahu's domestic political narrative while demonstrating Trump's unwavering commitment to Israel. Trump also weighed in on Netanyahu's legal troubles, expressing confidence that Israeli President Isaac Herzog will grant him a pardon. "I think he will," Trump said when asked about the pardon. "How do you not? He's a wartime prime minister who's a hero. How do you not give a pardon?" Trump added, "I spoke to the president and he tells me it's on its way." The statement represents an extraordinary intervention by an American president in the domestic legal affairs of an ally. Netanyahu faces corruption charges in Israel, and Trump's public advocacy for a pardon puts pressure on Israeli institutions to comply. For critics, this is another example of Trump using American influence to shield a political ally from accountability, undermining the rule of law in Israel, just as critics accuse him of doing in the United States. The pardon issue is particularly sensitive because it touches on questions of accountability that resonate far beyond Israel's borders. Netanyahu is accused of bribery, fraud, and breach of trust, serious charges that his opponents say disqualify him from office. By publicly advocating for a pardon, Trump is essentially telling Israeli prosecutors, judges, and voters that these charges should be dismissed because Netanyahu is a wartime hero. The message to other leaders facing legal troubles is clear. Align yourself with Trump, and he will use American influence to protect you from accountability. For those who believe in the independence of judicial systems, this is a deeply troubling precedent. Trump addressed the situation in Gaza, indicating that reconstruction efforts could begin in the near future, but with conditions. "I think it's going to begin pretty soon," Trump said when asked about Gaza reconstruction. "He's looking forward to it, so am I." But Trump made clear that progress depends on Hamas laying down its weapons. "There has to be a disarmament," Trump said. "We have to disarm Hamas. There has to be a disarming of Hamas. Otherwise, very quickly." The insistence on Hamas disarmament as a precondition for reconstruction presents a significant obstacle. Hamas has shown no willingness to disarm, and forcing the issue could mean prolonged suffering for Gaza's civilian population, who have already endured devastating destruction. Trump acknowledged the scale of the challenge. "Look what a mess. What a mess it is. And it's been a mess for centuries, really. It's been a mess for a long time." Trump offered a characteristically blunt assessment of the situation in Gaza. "Gaza is a tough place," he said. The expression, "it's a tough neighborhood," it's truly a tough neighborhood. He added, "We're already starting certain things. We're doing things for sanitary conditions and others." The framing of Gaza as simply a tough neighborhood that has been a mess for centuries obscures the specific policies and actions that have contributed to the current humanitarian catastrophe. Critics argue this kind of language normalizes the suffering of Gaza's population and absolves those responsible for the destruction. For the millions of Palestinians in Gaza who have lost homes, family members, and livelihoods, the characterization of their situation as an ancient, inevitable problem rather than the result of specific political choices is deeply offensive. The humanitarian situation in Gaza remains catastrophic. More than 2 million people are crowded into a territory that has been subjected to relentless bombardment. Homes, hospitals, schools, and infrastructure have been destroyed. Food, water, and medical supplies are scarce. International organizations have warned of famine conditions and have called for immediate action to address the suffering. Against this backdrop, Trump's characterization of Gaza as simply a tough neighborhood seems disconnected from the reality on the ground. It suggests a lack of urgency, or perhaps a lack of concern, about the fate of Gaza's civilian population. Trump indicated openness to the possibility of Turkish forces being stationed in Gaza, praising his relationship with Turkish President Erdogan. When asked if he would allow Turkish forces in Gaza, Trump said, "I have a great relationship with President Erdogan and we'll be talking about it. And if it's good, I think that's good." He added, "Turkey's been great and he's been excellent as far as I'm concerned. To me, he's been very good." The potential involvement of Turkey in Gaza's future governance represents a significant development. Turkey has been one of the most vocal critics of Israel's actions in Gaza, and Erdogan has maintained close ties with Hamas. For Israel, Turkish involvement in Gaza could be complicated, but Trump's warm words for Erdogan suggest that Washington may push for Ankara's participation regardless of Israeli reservations. Trump also addressed the conflict in Ukraine, confirming that he spoke with Russian President Vladimir Putin earlier in the day. "I had a very good talk this morning," Trump said. "I waited till this morning because it was pretty late by the time we finished, like 2:30 in Russia, 2:30 in the morning, and we had a very good talk." Trump described the conversation as very productive, adding, "We have a few very thorny issues, as you can imagine. He knows about thorny issues probably better than anybody in the world, but it's working out." Then Trump made a striking claim about Ukrainian casualties. Ukraine is losing 26,000 soldiers a month. Can you believe it? A month. 26,000 young, beautiful soldiers. The figure is significantly higher than most public estimates. Casualty figures in the war are notoriously hard to verify, and neither side publishes full loss data. Trump appeared to use the casualty figures to emphasize the urgency of reaching a peace deal. "If we get them resolved, you're going to have peace," Trump said of the thorny issues under discussion. Trump expressed optimism that a resolution to the Ukraine conflict is within reach. "We have a couple of issues that we're going to get resolved, hopefully," he said, "and if we get them resolved, you're going to have peace." The statement suggests that Trump believes he is close to brokering some kind of deal with Putin, though the details remain unclear. When asked about reports of a Ukrainian drone attack on Putin's residence, Trump said he had just heard about it and didn't have details. "That would be too bad," Trump said. "That would not be good." The comment suggests Trump views Ukrainian strikes on Russian territory as unhelpful to his diplomatic efforts, a position that aligns more closely with Moscow's perspective than Kiev's. Trump said that the United States had struck a facility in Venezuela used for drug trafficking. There was a major explosion in the dock area where they load the boats up with drugs, Trump said. "They load the boats up with drugs. So we hit all the boats and now we hit the area." And he described it as an implementation area and said bluntly, "That is no longer around." Trump did not provide evidence for the strike and declined to say which agency carried it out. When pressed on whether it was a U.S. military strike or another entity like the CIA, Trump said, "I don't want to say that. I know exactly who it was, but I don't want to say who it was." Reuters reported there was no independent confirmation of the incident, and U.S. agencies did not confirm it. Venezuela and its allies, including Russia, have condemned U.S. actions in the Caribbean as violations of international law. Trump's refusal to identify who conducted the Venezuela strike leaves open questions about the nature of U.S. operations in the region. "I know exactly who it was, but I don't want to say who it was," Trump said, "but it was along the shore." Without independent verification or confirmation from U.S. agencies, it is difficult to assess the scope or impact of the reported strike. Critics have accused the Trump administration of escalating tensions with Venezuela without providing evidence to support its claims. For Venezuela and its allies, the statements, regardless of whether they can be independently verified, represent what they characterize as American aggression against a sovereign nation. When asked directly whether he would support the overthrow of the Iranian regime, Trump demurred, but still painted a dark picture of conditions inside Iran. "I'm not going to talk about overthrow of a regime, Trump said. They've got a lot of problems in Iran. They have tremendous inflation. Their economy is bust. Economy is no good. And I know that people aren't so happy. But Trump also acknowledged the Iranian government's capacity for brutal repression. Every time they have a riot or somebody forms a group, little or big, they start shooting people, he said. They kill people. And the people tend to, I've watched this for years, there's tremendous discontent. They form 100,000, 200,000 people. All of a sudden, people start getting shot and that group disbands pretty quickly. And he concluded, I've watched it for years. They're vicious, vicious people. The characterization of the Iranian government as vicious while declining to explicitly call for regime change reflects a nuanced, if still hostile, approach to Tehran. Trump touted what he presented as a major success in hostage negotiations, claiming credit for securing the release of nearly all hostages. Every hostage just about that's been released was released because of me, Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, my whole team, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth. Trump said they were all released because of us. None were released in the Biden administration, none. Trump then cited the numbers. Out of all of these people, what do you think the total number is? 255. 254 came out. One more. Think of that. And we got them all. Trump claimed that no hostages were released under Biden, but previous releases did take place during the November 2023 truce, when 105 hostages were released, according to Reuters, while Biden was still president. Trump acknowledged that one hostage remains. We have one wonderful young man whose parents are right now inside, and he's beautiful parents, a beautiful brother, sister, a beautiful family, and they're waiting for the son. When a reporter suggested there were reports of tensions between Trump and Netanyahu, the president dismissed them entirely. I don't think it can be better, Trump said of the relationship. We just won a big war together. He continued, if we didn't beat Iran, you wouldn't have had peace in the Middle East, because nobody would have been able, the Arab countries who have been fantastic would not have been able to make a deal if we didn't wipe out their nuclear. Trump took credit for the military campaign against Iran. We wiped it out with our beautiful B-2 bombers. We sent a lot of Tomahawks in there also, by the way, from a submarine. The language of winning a big war together and wiping out Iran's nuclear program reflects Trump's tendency to frame complex situations in terms of victory and defeat. Trump claimed the strikes destroyed Iran's nuclear capability. U.S. officials described severe damage to Iranian nuclear facilities during the June 2025 strikes, but the full extent is disputed and difficult to independently verify. For Trump, the conflict was a success, a quick, decisive military action that he says achieved its objectives. For Iran, it was a humiliation that has only strengthened the resolve to rebuild. Trump linked the military campaign against Iran directly to his broader Middle East diplomacy. If we didn't wipe out their nuclear, he said, referring to the strikes on Iran, the Arab countries who have been fantastic would not have been able to make a deal. The statement suggests that Trump views military force against Iran as a precondition for diplomatic progress elsewhere in the region, a perspective that prioritizes coercion over negotiation. For Iran and its allies, this framing confirms their view that American policy in the Middle East is fundamentally about using force to reshape the region according to U.S. and Israeli preferences, with little regard for Iranian sovereignty or security concerns. Trump indicated that he and Netanyahu were discussing multiple major issues during their meetings. We have about 5 major subjects that we're discussing, Trump said, and Gaza will be one of those subjects. He did not specify what the other 4 subjects were, but based on the press conference, they likely include Iran, Lebanon, Syria, and the broader Abraham Accords framework. The acknowledgement of 5 major subjects underscores the complexity of the U.S.-Israel relationship and the number of regional issues that require coordination between Washington and Jerusalem. For critics, the close coordination between Trump and Netanyahu on these issues represents a consolidation of hawkish policies that threaten regional stability and Palestinian rights. For observers critical of U.S. policy toward Israel, the Mar-a-Lago press conference was a troubling display. Trump's unconditional support for Netanyahu, praising him as indispensable, advocating for his pardon, and promising to back Israeli strikes on Iran immediately, suggests that there are few, if any, limits to what Washington will support. The commitment to knock the hell out of Iran if it tries to rebuild, combined with the green light for Israeli military action, raises the prospect of a broader regional war that could draw in multiple countries. And the framing of Gaza as simply a tough neighborhood that has been a mess for centuries suggests little urgency to address the humanitarian catastrophe facing its population. For those hoping that U.S. policy might encourage restraint from Israel, the press conference offered little comfort. The aggressive posture displayed at Mar-a-Lago is likely to draw responses from the countries targeted by Trump's remarks. Iran has already indicated interest in negotiations, but Trump's threats of military action and support for Israeli strikes may harden positions in Tehran. The Islamic Republic faces a choice between negotiating under pressure or preparing for potential conflict. Russia, which maintains close ties with Iran and has condemned U.S. actions in Venezuela, will be watching carefully. Trump's productive call with Putin suggests some diplomatic channel remains open, but the overall trajectory of U.S. policy in the Middle East and Latin America runs counter to Russian interests. Venezuela, which has already accused the U.S. of piracy in the Caribbean, will likely seek support from Russia, China, and other allies in responding to what it characterizes as American aggression, though Trump's claims about strikes on Venezuelan territory have not been independently verified. The Mar-a-Lago summit is just one stop in what promises to be a consequential period for the Middle East and beyond. Trump and Netanyahu have signaled their intention to move forward on Gaza reconstruction, but only on their terms, with Hamas disarmament as a precondition. Whether that is achievable without renewed military operations remains to be seen. The threat to Iran looms large. Trump's commitment to support Israeli strikes immediately if Tehran continues its nuclear program puts the region on a potential path to further conflict. And the statements about Venezuela add another dimension to an already complex global picture, though the lack of independent verification makes it difficult to assess the full situation. For those hoping for de-escalation and diplomacy, the Mar-a-Lago press conference offered little encouragement. Instead, it projected an image of two leaders aligned in their willingness to use force and confident that they will prevail. The world is watching the Mar-a-Lago summit with a mixture of concern and calculation. In Tehran, officials are weighing their options: negotiate under pressure or prepare for the possibility of further strikes. In Moscow, Putin is assessing what Trump's aggressive posture means for the Ukraine negotiations and whether the American president can be relied upon as a partner in any deal. In Caracas, Maduro is rallying domestic support against what he calls American imperialism while reaching out to allies for assistance. In European capitals, there is growing unease about the direction of U.S. policy and what it means for regional stability. And in the Arab world, leaders who have been courted by both Washington and Beijing are watching to see which way the wind is blowing. The Mar-a-Lago press conference was not just a bilateral meeting. It was a signal to the world about American intentions under Trump's leadership.